community center always felt like a place where time moved a little slower. In the mornings, sunlight slipped through the dusty windows and landed on the old wooden floors, creating calm patches of warmth that made the building feel softer than it really was. Children came and went, their voices filling the hallways with noise that kept the place alive. But among them was one quiet girl who rarely spoke, and most people only knew her because of the small instrument case she carried everywhere. She never walked without it. The case looked older than her, with faded corners and scratches that showed years of use. The other kids would run, laugh, chase each other, or sit in groups whispering about things only they understood. But she preferred the corner near the back garden, where a little bench stood under the shade of a tall tree. It was there she opened the instrument case every day, handling the worn-out flute with gentle hands, almost as if she were afraid the world might take it from her. The caretakers noticed her silence but never pushed her to speak. They knew she had been through more than any child should face. Her mother had fallen seriously ill months ago and was taken to a hospital far from the city. Since then, the girl had been left at the center while the adults tried to figure out how to support her. She didn't cry in front of anyone, but there was something fragile in her eyes that told everyone she was holding on to something deep inside. Music seemed to be the only thread connecting her to the life she had before everything changed. In the quiet hours of the afternoon, when most children rested or played inside, she would lift the flute to her lips and play soft notes that drifted across the garden. Some days her tunes sounded light, as if she were remembering a happier time. Other days it sank low, each note sounding like a plea or a prayer she didn't know how to express in words. The caretakers often stood near the back door listening quietly. They never interrupted her. There was something special in the way she played, something that didn't fit her age. It wasn't polished or trained, but it carried real emotion, the kind that wasn't taught. People who passed by the garden sometimes stopped to listen without even realizing it. Her soft music reached strangers the same way it reached everyone else. Gently, like it understood them before they understood it. One cold morning, the center buzzed with activity. Volunteers from a local charity had arrived to organize a community event. They wanted to raise funds for children who needed school supplies and winter clothing. The hall filled with tables, decorations, bright posters, and cheerful conversations about how to make the event memorable. Someone suggested adding a short talent segment to keep visitors entertained. It didn't need to be big, just something simple to make the event feel warm and lively. When the girl passed by the planning group, holding her instrument case as usual, one of the volunteers noticed her. She had seen the child play in the garden before and remembered how deeply the music had moved her. With a warm smile, she crouched down and asked gently if the girl wanted to perform a small tune at the event. The question made the girl freeze. She didn't speak. Her fingers tightened on the handle of the case. The volunteer kept her tone soft and patient, saying it didn't have to be anything big, just a short tune if she felt comfortable. The girl didn't reply, but after a moment, she gave the smallest nod. One that barely moved her head, and that was enough. The caretakers weren't sure if the girl would actually go through with it. She had always been shy, and performing in front of strangers wasn't something she had ever done. But they also knew the flute was her closest companion. If there was anything she might be willing to share with the world, it was that. Days passed quickly as the community prepared for the event. Posters were hung around the neighborhood, tables were set up in the hall, and the kitchen filled with volunteers cooking meals to serve. Children practiced little skits and dances. Adults arranged donation boxes and decorated the stage area with paper lights and soft fabric. Everyone seemed excited and busy. During this time, the girl continued playing in the garden. Her music sounded a little different now, thoughtful, as if she were choosing something important. She practiced the same tune again and again, a simple melody her mother used to hum while cooking dinner or brushing her hair. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't loud or impressive, but it was hers, shaped by every moment she had spent with the person she missed most. On the night before the event, she sat on the bench longer than usual. The evening air was cool and quiet. She closed her eyes while playing, letting the melody flow without forcing anything. For a moment, she imagined her mother standing nearby, smiling the way she used to. When she opened her eyes, she realized she wasn't scared of the performance. She wasn't doing it for the audience. She was doing it for her mother. The morning of the event came with bright weather and a cheerful crowd. Families walked through the center's entrance carrying small baskets of food or envelopes with donations. Kids tugged at their parents' hands, excited to see performances and play the small games set up in the corner. The hall filled with laughter, greetings, and the clatter of chairs being moved. The girl arrived quietly, holding her flute case close to her chest. A caretaker guided her to the waiting area near the stage. Her heart thumped fast, not because she feared the crowd, but because she hoped she could play the tune in the same honest way she played it in the garden. Performers went before her. A group of children did a dance, a young boy recited a poem, and a pair of friends performed a funny skit that made the audience laugh loudly. The atmosphere felt warm and welcoming, which helped ease the girl's nerves a little. When it was finally her turn, a volunteer gently led her onto the small stage. The lights weren't bright, just enough to see her clearly. She stood in the middle, small and unsure, but not running away. The room grew soft with silence as people waited. She opened her case carefully, lifted the flute with slow hands, and positioned it with a familiarity that showed how many hours she had spent with it. Her eyes lowered to the floor for a brief second before she took a quiet breath. Then, without any introduction, she began to play. The first note was soft, almost like a whisper. The next one carried a little strength. As the melody continued, the room started to change. People who had been talking fell silent. Those who had been distracted turned their heads toward the stage. Parents leaned forward. Children stopped fidgeting. Even volunteers paused in the middle of their work. The tune was simple, but it carried something deeper than words. It felt like longing, like love stretched across a distance too wide for a child to understand. It felt like memories wrapped in sound. Gentle moments, lost moments, moments she wished she could get back. Every note carried a piece of her heart, and the audience felt it without knowing her story. By the time she reached the last note, the room was still. Nobody clapped at first, not because they didn't want to, but because they felt the need to respect the moment. Then slowly, applause began to fill the hall, soft at first, then growing louder. The girl lowered her flute, looking unsure of how to react. Someone near the front wiped a tear. A volunteer quietly lifted her phone, having recorded the performance without planning to. She didn't know yet what that video would become. No one did. The girl simply walked off stage, holding the flute close, her expression calm but touched by something only she understood. In her heart, she believed her mother would have heard that melody somehow. And without knowing it, she had taken the first step towards something much bigger than a small community event. Something that would soon reach far beyond the walls of that little center and into the life of the person she loved. The day after the community event, the girl returned to the garden bench, her flute case resting against her lap. She felt a strange mixture of relief and nervous energy. Relief because she had shared her tune in front of so many people and had survived the fear that had held her for so long. Nervous energy because she didn't know what would happen next. She kept replaying the moment she had stood on the stage, the lights softly glowing around her, the audience silent and listening, the way her music had filled the room. It was a memory that made her both proud and anxious. In the early morning, the caretaker who had encouraged her to perform came quietly into the garden. She smiled at the girl and asked how she felt. The girl didn't answer at first. She just held the flute close, her fingers tracing the familiar scratches and dents on its surface. Finally, she spoke softly, saying that it felt strange to play in front of others. She admitted she had been scared, but she also felt that her music had reached something inside people that words never could. The caretaker nodded, understanding that the girl had taken a brave step without even realizing the full weight of it. Meanwhile, the video of her performance had begun to spread slowly. The volunteer who recorded it uploaded it online, thinking it was just a small share for friends and family. But by the afternoon, strangers began to comment on how moving it was. People were sharing it, sending it to friends, and writing about how they had been touched by the innocence, emotion, and raw honesty in her playing. The comments mentioned how a simple tune could speak volumes, how they had felt the child's love for her mother through the music, and how her sadness had reached into their own hearts. Back at the community center, the girl remained unaware of the video's reach. She spent her mornings in the garden, afternoons helping caretakers with small tasks, and evenings practicing alone. She played her tunes softly, imagining her mother hearing every note across the distance. She didn't play to impress anyone. She played to feel close to her mother, to keep a bond that even illness and distance could not sever. The event organizers were busy with thank you notes, collecting donations, and organizing other activities, so they didn't notice how far the video had traveled until an email arrived. A doctor from a city hospital had seen the clip online and was moved by it. In the email, the doctor explained that he had recognized certain signs in the way the child played and in the story shared in the comments. The doctor believed that her mother's condition, which had been considered too serious for local treatments, might now be manageable with a new approach. This was a chance, perhaps the only one, to save her life. The community center shared this news with the girl's caretakers. At first, they were cautious. They had to ensure the situation was real and that the family could be reached. Once confirmed, the caretaker gently explained to the girl that her mother might get help and that she could have a chance to see her again. The girl's eyes widened, her hands clutching the flute case tightly. She didn't speak, but her expression carried every emotion: hope, fear, longing, and disbelief. She had wanted her mother to get better for so long, but she hadn't imagined it could happen so suddenly. In the next few days, the community came together to help. Donations that had started pouring in online were organized into funds to cover the treatment and travel expenses. Volunteers coordinated with the hospital, the charity organization, and local transportation. Every step was a race against time because her mother's condition required immediate attention. The girl watched these preparations quietly, sometimes playing small tunes in the corners of the center, letting her fingers trace the notes she had practiced so many times. The girl's emotions were a mixture of excitement and worry. She wondered what it would feel like to see her mother after months of separation, of hospital visits and lonely nights. She imagined her mother lying in the hospital bed, pale but awake, waiting for her music to reach her. She wondered if her mother would recognize the tune she had played at the community event or the one she had played in the quiet garden. These thoughts filled her nights and followed her into her practice sessions, making each note heavier and more meaningful. The day of the journey to the hospital came. The caretaker held her hand as they walked to the small bus arranged to take them to the city. The girl carried her flute, wrapped carefully in a soft cloth, as if it were armor against the fear and sadness that had been her constant companions. The road stretched ahead, long and winding, but the girl's mind was fixed on the hospital, on the mother she had not seen for months, and on the melody that would bridge the distance between them. During the journey, the girl didn't speak much. She played quietly on her flute when she felt overwhelmed, letting the soft notes calm her racing thoughts. Occasionally, the caretaker would glance at her, seeing the delicate concentration on her face, the way her eyes seemed to see both the road ahead and memories of a past she couldn't leave behind. The music felt like a dialogue with her mother, a conversation that only they understood, spoken in a language made of notes rather than words. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the mother lay in a quiet room, aware of the world but weak from illness. The doctors and nurses had been monitoring her condition closely. They were informed about the young girl whose performance had gone viral and the funds raised to support her treatment. While the mother rested, she heard whispers about the child, about the tune, and about the hope arriving with the girl. Though she was too weak to move, she closed her eyes and listened, imagining the notes, trying to feel the presence of her daughter even before she arrived. As the bus neared the city, the girl's heart pounded harder. Each street sign, each turn, seemed to bring her closer to the person she loved most. She gripped the flute tighter, feeling the weight of everything the instrument had come to represent. Her memories, her longing, her prayers. She knew that her music had already traveled far beyond her expectations. Now it would reach the place where her mother lay, and she prayed that it could do more than reach ears, that it could reach the heart. Finally, they arrived at the hospital. The caretaker guided her through the hallways, and the girl's footsteps echoed softly in the quiet corridors. When the room was finally in sight, she froze. She saw her mother lying there, frail but alive, surrounded by the sterile white walls and gentle hum of machines. The sight was both overwhelming and comforting. Her mother opened her eyes slightly, trying to focus, and the girl's heart swelled. She knew it was time. The girl lifted her flute, taking a deep breath, and began to play. The first note was hesitant, a whisper of sound that filled the room gently. Then, as she continued, her confidence grew. Each note carried love, fear, hope, and longing, wrapping around her mother like a blanket. The mother's eyes widened, recognizing the melody, recognizing the tune they had shared countless times before. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she smiled faintly, feeling the presence of her daughter through the music. The room seemed to pause. The nurses and doctors watched quietly, sensing that something more than a simple tune was being played. It was a language of connection, of memory, of love that had survived distance, illness, and time. The girl played as if she were pouring all of her heart into the notes, letting the music tell a story she could not yet speak aloud. When the last note lingered in the room, silence followed. The mother reached out weakly, trying to touch her daughter's hand. The girl set down the flute and took the hand gently, holding it as if never wanting to let go. At that moment, the distance, the illness, and the fear all seemed to shrink. The music had bridged the gap, and hope had arrived, carried on a simple tune that was far from simple in meaning. The caretaker watched them, tears filling her eyes, understanding that the girl's courage and the music had created a miracle. The mother smiled faintly, squeezing her daughter's hand, whispering words of love she had held back for months. The girl smiled back, feeling the warmth of that love, feeling the bond she had worked to preserve through every lonely practice session. This was only the beginning, but it was a powerful beginning. The girl had played her tune not just for herself or for the audience at the community center, but for the person who mattered most. In the quiet hospital room, surrounded by machines and white walls, the music had spoken louder than words, and it had reached the heart it was always meant to reach. And in that moment, the girl realized that her simple tune, filled with the weight of her love and longing, could do far more than she had ever imagined. The video of the girl's performance continued to spread far beyond what anyone at the community center could imagine. By the next morning, thousands of people had watched it, shared it, and commented. Each comment told a story of how her music had touched hearts, how the raw emotion in her simple tune carried something universal. Some people felt tears welling in their eyes. Others wrote about memories of their own parents, long lost or far away. Nobody knew her name. Nobody knew the full story, but everyone who watched understood the language of love and longing in every note. The volunteer who had uploaded the video had thought it would only be a small gesture, something personal to show friends and family, but the response was overwhelming. News outlets picked it up, calling it a story of pure emotion. Social media pages shared the link over and over. Within a few hours, the video had reached people from different cities, some even from other countries. Strangers were moved, strangers were inspired, and the girl's music was creating ripples far beyond the quiet garden where she had practiced for months. The caretakers tried to explain the situation to her in a gentle way. They told her that the video had been seen by many people, that strangers were moved by her music, and that some of these people had offered to help her mother with treatment. The girl didn't fully understand the scale, but she felt a warm glow of hope in her chest. She looked down at her flute and thought about how each note she played had traveled so far, carrying a piece of her heart with it. In the city hospital, the mother's condition was slowly being stabilized, but her health was still delicate. The doctors had heard about the girl whose performance had gone viral. They examined her mother's records and started discussing new options for treatment. One doctor, in particular, felt strongly that her case had a chance if they acted quickly. The combination of medical expertise and funds raised through donations made this possibility real. Without the girl's music reaching the right people, they would not have had this opportunity. The girl spent the day preparing for the visit. She carefully cleaned and polished the flute, making sure it was in perfect condition. Every scratch and mark on it had a memory attached, and she ran her fingers over each one, remembering times when her mother had hummed along while she played, times when they had shared small moments that had felt eternal. She packed the instrument securely in its case, feeling the weight of it not as a burden but as a lifeline. As the day went on, volunteers and caretakers arranged travel, accommodations, and hospital permissions. There were conversations over the phone, quick meetings in hallways, and constant reassurances from everyone involved that everything was ready. The girl observed quietly, absorbing the energy and focus around her. She realized that many people she had never met were working together for her mother's sake. That realization filled her with gratitude, but it also made her feel small and anxious. Could she do enough to help her mother? Could a simple tune really make a difference? On the way to the hospital, the girl's mind wandered to memories of her mother. She remembered the soft lullabies at night, the gentle encouragement when she struggled to learn new notes, the warm hands that had held hers as she explored the world. She remembered the day her mother had fallen ill and the hospital room that had felt so empty and cold. Every memory was tied to her music now, and every note she played carried those feelings. She clutched the flute in her hands and whispered quietly, almost to herself, that she hoped her mother could hear it, wherever she was. The journey to the city was long and tiring, but the girl focused on the music. When her thoughts became too heavy, she played quietly on the flute, letting each note carry the tension, the hope, the longing. The caretaker noticed and smiled softly, understanding that for the girl, music was not just a hobby, not just a talent, but a way of surviving and connecting. The soft tunes drifted into the bus, unnoticed by most, but it was enough to keep the girl steady, to keep her calm. Arriving at the hospital, the girl was led through corridors she had never seen before. The smell of antiseptic, the hum of machines, and the soft voices of nurses and doctors made her feel nervous. She gripped the flute case a little tighter. Finally, they reached the room where her mother was resting. The sight of her mother, lying still and weak but alive, brought a rush of emotions she could hardly contain. Her heart pounded as she took careful steps forward, carrying the music that had been her constant companion. The mother, sensing someone entering, opened her eyes slightly. Though she was weak, she seemed to recognize the presence of her daughter instantly. Her lips formed a faint smile, and she tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. The girl approached slowly, kneeling beside the hospital bed. She opened the flute case, lifted the instrument carefully, and took a deep breath. Then she began to play. The first note was soft and trembling, as if testing the waters. But as she continued, her confidence grew. The melody she played was simple, yet each note carried emotion, love, fear, hope, longing, and a deep desire for connection. The mother's eyes brightened as she listened, tears welling up. She could hear the music, feel the presence of her daughter, and understand the depth of love that had been woven into every sound. It was as if the music reached directly into her heart, bypassing the pain and weakness that had made her life so fragile. Outside the room, nurses paused in their duties, captivated by the emotion in the air. The sound of the flute was not just music. It was a message, a bridge between two hearts separated by illness and distance. Even the doctors felt the shift in atmosphere, sensing the importance of the moment beyond their medical expertise. The girl's simple tune carried more power than anyone had expected. As she played, the girl felt a sense of release. All the fear and anxiety she had carried for months seemed to dissolve with each note. She no longer played just to feel close to her mother. She played with the belief that this music could help, could heal, could reach people in ways that words could not. The connection she had nurtured in the quiet garden had grown, reaching farther than she could have imagined. The mother reached out her hand weakly, and the girl gently held it, letting the music flow through both of them. Each note resonated with shared memories, past moments, and the hope for a future together. It was a language only they understood, yet its effect was universal. Those present in the room could feel the gravity of the moment, the raw truth of love and care, and the miraculous way a child's heart could touch so many lives. When the last note faded, a profound silence filled the room. The mother's eyes shone with tears, her lips quivering with a faint smile. The girl lowered the flute, feeling the weight of the moment. She had shared her music, and in return, she received the presence and recognition of the one person who mattered most. The caretakers and volunteers looked on, quietly moved by what had just occurred. They understood that this was no ordinary performance. It had become a lifeline, a beacon of hope, and a testament to the power of love. The doctors, seeing the emotional bond between mother and child, felt renewed motivation to act swiftly. The funds raised, combined with their expertise, meant that treatment could begin immediately. The girl's music had not only reached hearts, but had also mobilized a practical effort to save a life. The realization that her tune could have such an impact left the girl overwhelmed. Yet a quiet strength settled in her. She understood, in her own way, that her gift could change the world, starting with the person she loved most. As the day continued, the hospital staff worked efficiently, but the room remained filled with a gentle warmth. The girl stayed by her mother's side, holding her hand, occasionally playing small notes that reminded them both of better times. The mother, regaining some strength, smiled more openly now, responding to each note with recognition and love. It was a slow, delicate process, but the bond between them had never been stronger. By evening, the mother's condition had stabilized enough for the doctors to begin the next stage of treatment. The girl had seen hope materialize before her eyes, a direct result of the courage, dedication, and emotion she had poured into her music. The moment was profound, a reminder that even a simple tune could carry extraordinary power when played with heart and purpose. The girl realized that her journey had only just begun, but the first steps had already created ripples that would carry far and wide, touching lives in ways she could never have predicted. The room grew quiet again, not out of fear or uncertainty, but out of reverence. The mother and daughter shared a soft gaze, understanding that words were not needed. Music had done the talking, and it had said everything that mattered. In that quiet hospital room, with the hum of machines in the background and the soft presence of caretakers nearby, love had been heard, hope had been felt, and a life had been given a new chance. The days that followed were filled with a mixture of careful planning and quiet anticipation. The hospital had begun the necessary treatment for the mother, and the doctors were optimistic, yet they reminded everyone to be patient. The girl stayed close to her mother, carrying her flute and practicing the melodies she had used to comfort her, knowing that every note she played was more than just music. It was hope. Even when she played softly, the sound seemed to bring a sense of calm to the room. Nurses would smile quietly, noting how the child's music could lighten the atmosphere in ways medicine sometimes could not. Outside, the video of her performance had continued to spread. The story of the orphan girl who had played a simple tune to connect with her sick mother captured the hearts of people across the city and beyond. Donations continued to arrive, and messages of support came from strangers who had been moved by the girl's music and courage. Some shared their own stories of love and longing, others simply offered prayers. The small tune had become a symbol, not only of the girl's love for her mother, but of the power of hope, determination, and empathy. The girl, however, paid little attention to the attention her performance had received. She focused on her mother, on the soft sounds of the flute, and on being present in every small moment. She would practice a little each day, playing tunes she knew her mother loved, and sometimes when her mother was awake and alert, she would watch the girl with a soft smile, listening carefully, sometimes humming along, other times just letting the notes fill the room. The caretakers and volunteers ensured that everything ran smoothly. They organized schedules, arranged meals, and coordinated with doctors and nurses. They helped the girl and her mother feel safe and cared for, and they made sure that all the necessary arrangements were in place for any unexpected needs. The girl trusted them completely, and their calm presence allowed her to focus on what mattered most: her mother's well-being and the music that connected them. Each day, the girl would sit beside her mother, holding the flute, and play softly. Sometimes, her mother would ask for her favorite tunes, and the girl would play them with delicate care. Other times, the mother would simply close her eyes and let the music wash over her, finding comfort and strength in the familiar notes. The bond between them grew stronger with every melody, every whispered note, and every moment of shared silence. The music had become more than just sound. It was a lifeline, a thread connecting two hearts that had been separated by illness and distance. As the treatment progressed, the doctors began to see signs of improvement. The mother's strength returned slowly but steadily, and the worry that had once hung heavily in the room began to lighten. The girl noticed every small change, every faint smile, every glimmer of recognition in her mother's eyes. Each improvement was a victory, and each moment of connection through music felt like a triumph. The girl realized that her simple tune had played a role in this recovery, that the love and emotion she put into every note had touched her mother in ways words could never capture. The hospital room became a place of quiet resilience. Friends and volunteers would visit, bringing small gifts and words of encouragement, but the girl and her mother remained at the center of it all. They shared quiet conversations, often using gestures or soft words, sometimes communicating through the music itself. The flute became a symbol of continuity, a reminder that even in the hardest times, love and connection could survive. The girl understood that the music she played was not just for her mother's ears, but for her heart, and that realization made every practice session meaningful and profound. One evening, as the sun set and painted the room in soft shades of orange and pink, the girl played a tune she had composed herself. It was a mixture of memories and hope, a melody that carried the longing of days spent apart and the anticipation of a future together. Her mother listened intently, eyes glistening with tears, a smile forming despite the weakness in her body. The tune seemed to fill every corner of the room, touching everything and everyone present with its quiet strength. Volunteers and caretakers noticed how the music transformed the atmosphere. Even the hospital staff, who had witnessed countless moments of sadness and recovery, were moved by the simplicity and depth of the girl's performance. The melody spoke of love, of resilience, and of the extraordinary connection between mother and child. It was a reminder that healing was not only physical but emotional, that hope could be nurtured through small, deliberate acts of care, and that the power of love could be stronger than any obstacle. The girl's connection with her mother deepened with each passing day. She learned to understand subtle cues, the way her mother's eyes would brighten at certain notes, the small gestures that indicated she was feeling stronger, and the gentle movements that expressed gratitude and recognition. In return, her mother encouraged her with smiles, soft words, and sometimes gentle hums that accompanied the music. Together, they found a rhythm, a shared understanding that transcended words and brought them closer than they had ever been before. The media continued to follow the story. People were inspired by the way a young girl's love and music had brought attention to her mother's plight and had sparked a wave of generosity and care. Some journalists visited the hospital to interview volunteers, caretakers, and even the medical staff, capturing the essence of hope and human resilience that the girl and her music represented. The story became a beacon of positivity, reminding readers and viewers that even in difficult circumstances, simple acts of love could create extraordinary change. Despite the growing attention, the girl remained focused on her mother. She played for her, talked to her, and shared small moments that were filled with love and tenderness. The hospital room became a sanctuary, a place where the outside world and its noise could not intrude. Here it was just the girl, her mother, and the music that connected them. Every note played was a reaffirmation of hope, a promise that no matter the challenges, they would face them together. As the treatment continued and progress became more noticeable, plans were made for the girl and her mother to return home when it was safe. The doctors emphasized the importance of ongoing care, but they also recognized the role of emotional support in the recovery process. The girl understood that her music would continue to be a vital part of her mother's healing journey, a source of comfort, strength, and connection. She practiced daily, ensuring that her tunes remained steady, soothing, and filled with love. One afternoon, as the girl played a familiar melody, her mother reached out and took her hand. The gesture was small but filled with meaning. It was a silent acknowledgement of everything they had been through, of the love that had sustained them, and of the hope that now seemed tangible. The girl smiled, tears forming in her eyes, feeling a sense of completeness she had not known in months. The music had done more than fill the air. It had filled their hearts with courage and reassurance. The hospital staff, volunteers, and caretakers continued to support them, providing guidance, encouragement, and practical assistance. They helped the girl understand that her role was not only as a daughter but as a source of strength and hope for her mother. Each day, the girl rose to the challenge with quiet determination, using her music to comfort, inspire, and heal. The bond between mother and daughter grew stronger, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of love. As the days turned into weeks, the mother's condition improved steadily. The girl's music remained central to her recovery, providing comfort during difficult moments and enhancing the moments of progress and success. The small, simple tunes that had once been played in a quiet garden now resonated in a hospital room filled with hope, connection, and gratitude. The girl realized that her journey was not just about saving her mother's life, but about building a foundation of love and care that would last for years to come. Through it all, the girl remained humble and focused, never seeking recognition or fame. Her purpose was clear: to be there for her mother, to play music that healed, and to offer love in the purest way she knew. The hospital room became a place of miracles, not because of medical technology alone, but because of the simple, heartfelt connection between a mother and her daughter. The girl's tune, once simple and soft, had grown into a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of love. The morning sunlight filled the hospital room with a soft glow. The girl sat beside her mother, the flute resting gently in her hands. Today felt different. There was an energy in the room, quiet yet strong, as if hope itself had taken a tangible form. The mother, now looking more alert and stronger than she had in weeks, smiled at her daughter. It was a smile that spoke of gratitude, relief, and deep love. The girl returned the smile, a warmth spreading through her chest, and gently lifted the flute to her lips. She began to play the tune that had first brought them together, the melody she had practiced countless times in the quiet garden. The notes were soft and pure, each one carrying her emotions: love, hope, longing, and joy. Her mother listened intently, her eyes glistening, a faint smile on her lips as recognition and familiarity washed over her. The music filled the room, wrapping around them, binding them in a moment that felt both delicate and eternal. Outside the room, the hospital staff paused in their tasks. Nurses and doctors, who had been witnesses to countless recoveries and moments of despair, felt something different in the air. The music was not just sound. It was a language of connection, a powerful force that seemed to breathe life into the room. They watched quietly, understanding that this simple act carried profound meaning, bridging gaps that words could never reach. The girl continued to play, her fingers moving with confidence and care. She allowed herself to feel every note, every emotion, without holding back. She imagined the times she had spent with her mother, the laughter, the small joys, the tender moments that had been interrupted by illness. Each note was a piece of memory, a thread weaving them together across the distance and the months they had been apart. She realized that music could convey everything she felt, that it could heal not only the body but the heart. Her mother reached out a hand and gently held her daughter's, her touch weak but steady. The girl felt a rush of emotion, a mix of relief, love, and gratitude. She did not stop playing. She let the music carry her feelings, allowing it to speak where words could not. The mother's eyes welled up, tears falling softly, yet there was a sense of peace in her gaze. She felt the presence of her daughter, the love and care that had endured, and she knew that the music had been a lifeline, a bridge that had carried her through the darkness. In the days that followed, the mother's recovery continued steadily. The doctors were impressed by the improvements in her health, noting that the combination of medical treatment and emotional support had made a significant difference. The girl remained by her mother's side, playing her flute, sharing quiet moments, and providing comfort through the melodies that had become a vital part of their healing journey. The music was not merely an accompaniment. It was central to their connection, a source of strength, and a testament to the power of love. The community, who had first witnessed her performance at the center, continued to follow their story. Donations, messages, and expressions of support poured in from people who had been touched by the girl's music. They celebrated the recovery, not only as a medical success but as a victory of human connection, resilience, and compassion. The girl remained humble, focused entirely on her mother, understanding that the attention and praise were secondary to the bond they shared. As the mother regained more strength, they began to spend longer periods outside the hospital room. They walked slowly in the garden near the hospital, the girl playing soft tunes as they moved. Birds chirped in the background, sunlight dappled the path, and the gentle rustle of leaves accompanied their steps. These moments were peaceful, healing, and symbolic, representing a return to life and normalcy after weeks of fear and uncertainty. The music, gentle and flowing, became a companion to their conversations, a thread weaving joy and comfort into each day. The girl also began to teach her mother some simple tunes, encouraging her to hum along or tap rhythms on the bed. It was a playful, light-hearted experience that allowed laughter to return to the room. The mother's weak hands followed the movements as best they could, smiles exchanged, eyes sparkling with the delight of shared effort and progress. The simple act of playing together created a sense of accomplishment and connection that words alone could not have achieved. It reminded them both of the power of small moments to transform lives. Visitors continued to come, offering words of encouragement and small gifts, but the girl and her mother remained the center of attention without being overwhelmed. The caretakers and hospital staff ensured that these visits were comfortable and supportive. Friends shared meals, read stories, or simply sat quietly, listening to the music. The room became a place of warmth, care, and positive energy, a stark contrast to the fear and worry that had previously filled it. The girl's music had transformed the environment, giving everyone present a sense of hope and reassurance. One afternoon, as the sun filtered through the windows, the girl played a tune she had recently composed. It was a melody of gratitude and renewal, reflecting the journey they had endured together. Her mother listened, tears of joy streaming down her face, and for the first time in months, she felt a sense of complete peace. The music carried the weight of their struggles, the love that had sustained them, and the promise of a future filled with hope. The girl felt a deep satisfaction, knowing that her music had touched her mother's heart in ways she could never fully articulate. The hospital staff marveled at the resilience and strength of both the mother and daughter. They saw the tangible effects of emotional support on physical healing and recognized the extraordinary role of music in the process. The girl's ability to convey love, hope, and determination through her tunes was remarkable. She had taken a simple melody and transformed it into a source of comfort, healing, and inspiration. Everyone who witnessed it understood the profound impact that one child's courage and talent could have. Finally, the day arrived when the doctors declared that the mother was well enough to return home. The girl helped pack belongings, carefully securing her flute and the memories it carried. They walked out of the hospital together, the mother supported by her daughter and caretakers. The journey home was filled with quiet conversations, shared smiles, and the gentle flow of music, a reminder of the strength and connection that had carried them through the ordeal. The outside world, once distant and intimidating, now felt welcoming and full of possibility. At home, the mother's recovery continued under the loving care of her daughter and the support of the community. The girl played her flute daily, filling their home with music that brought comfort and joy. Neighbors and friends who visited often remarked on the sense of peace and happiness that radiated from the household. The mother's health improved steadily, and the bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Music remained central to their lives, a constant source of connection, healing, and celebration. The story of the girl and her mother spread widely, inspiring countless others. People spoke of the courage, love, and resilience that had transformed a simple tune into a lifeline. Schools invited the girl to play for children. Charities shared her story as an example of hope, and strangers continued to reach out with messages of encouragement and support. Despite all this attention, the girl remained focused on her mother, understanding that the true reward was the well-being and happiness of the person she loved most. In the quiet moments, when the day slowed and the world outside seemed distant, the girl and her mother would sit together, playing and listening to music. The daughter would play the tunes she had practiced, the mother would hum along, and sometimes they would create new melodies together. These moments were sacred, filled with laughter, love, and a sense of accomplishment. The simple act of making music had become a powerful tool for healing, a language of emotion that connected hearts and strengthened bonds. As time passed, the mother's health stabilized completely, and she regained her strength. The girl continued to play her flute, not for recognition or fame, but for the love she carried for her mother. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and separation. Yet through it all, their connection had remained unbroken. The music had been their constant companion, a reminder that even in the hardest times, love, courage, and hope could endure. Their story became a testament to the extraordinary power of a simple tune played with a full heart, a story that would inspire others for years to come. In the end, the girl understood that her music had done more than save her mother's life. It had created a bridge of love and hope, touched the hearts of strangers, and shown that even in the darkest moments, one small, heartfelt action could make a world of difference. Sitting beside her mother, playing the familiar melodies that had carried them through hardship, the girl felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. Their journey had been difficult, but it had brought them closer than ever before. The music, once a simple tune, had become a symbol of their love, resilience, and the incredible strength of the human heart.